You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 139.
Okay, I'm not sure where you'll put this
Me either.
in the podcast, but when you contacted me, or when I was contacted, you wanted to talk about a bit of the history of tissue.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to impart is that, yes, it matters, but one thing that I think has been overlooked in this history of who invented, who created it, who was the first, is the fact that without DuPont inventing nylon in 1938, there would be no tissue.
That's so true.
It is so true.
This podcast is dedicated to CIRCUS. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into this world. Hey, friends, fans, and foes. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast. It's almost summer break here at the Artist Athlete podcast. That's why I've got so much pep in my step today. I'm very excited. In 2 days, I am getting on a plane to Switzerland, and I will be seeing Young Stage, and then I am going to be hopping around Europe, meeting people, old friends, new friends, teaching in festivals, performing, doing a bunch of random fun stuff. If you want to hear about all of my adventures, if you want to keep hearing my melodious voice every week, Patreon.com/theartistathlete is the place to go. I will be adding updates there. And then the regular podcast will be back in September. So go ahead and hit subscribe, if nothing else. That don't cost you any money at all. Hit subscribe so that when I start releasing new episodes, you'll know about it because they will land right in your feed of whatever your podcast player is. But if you love what you're listening to every single week, I do think that the Patreon will serve you well. We'll give you that fix. Again, one more time, patreon.com/theartistathlete. My guest today, and what a guest it is to close out this season of the podcast, is Ginger Anna Alverez. Ginger was born and raised in the grit and whimsy of a traveling American circus before moving to Toronto, Canada, where her family founded the city's first circus school. Originally a tight wire walker, Ginger's career led her to aerial tissue, that's aerial silks or fabric if you're not from Canada, where she climbed up, pun intended, out of tradition and onto the stages of Cirque du Soleil, where she performed her revolutionary signature aerial act in 6 productions over 15 years. In addition to her work on stage as a principal aerialist, she's a 2-time Cirque du Soleil Innovation Grant recipient, an acrobatic performance designer, choreographer, and award-winning photographer. Ginger's strengths converge in art, movement, music, goofballs, clever ideas, and elegant design. She's the writer of short stories, a keen ideation partner, a natural project manager, and an innovator who savors the process of creative collaboration. Also, if you do aerial silks and you have ever done anything called a ginger, any drop, any pose, any position, it's probably named after this bitch. She's the one. I totally fangirled when she came to my house and sat down for the interview. So here it is, my interview with Ginger Alverez. Can I call people a bitch if it's like out of respect? Is that okay? Anyway, here's my interview. Play the music. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I don't know. Let's just see where it goes.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Say your full name for me.
Ooh, that's hard.
Just your first and last name then.
I'm not sure what it is right now. That's my problem.
Oh, work.
Yeah.
Can we just go Ginger?
Yeah, just go Ginger. I'll be Ginger Anna Griep Ruiz because that's how I'm known.
Anna Griep Ruiz.
Griep Ruiz. Ginger Anna Griep.
Griep Ruiz.
Yes, it's not fun. So that's my problem. Is that I want to change
you
my
have
last
an unfun name.
A totally unfun name. So I want to change my last name to my husband's last name. But unfortunately, of all the men in the world I could meet, I met and married one whose last name is a synonym for bread. I can't be Ginger Pita. That's ridiculous.
Oh, no.
No.
So no, that's a food. Oh, no.
Take his mother's name, which is Ginger Anna Alverez, which I'm trying to transition to.
Oh, we like this. Yeah.
Ginger Anna Alverez.
Ginger Pita. Oh, that is unfortunate.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, he must be really good looking. That's good.
I hope this stays in.
I will keep it in. Well, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to my home.
Thank you.
This is so cool to have you here. Can you start by introducing yourself in your own words? Like, what do you do?
What do I do? That is a good question. My name is Ginger. Yeah. I am somewhat second generation circus artist. My parents were essentially hippies that got into circus, and I grew up traveling with them. I started performing when I was 2, potentially smaller, in their street show. And I moved to Toronto. So when I was, I moved to Toronto when I was 7, almost 8. And there had a completely different growing up experience, being in a city and being very autonomous. And in some ways, other than other circus kids, I was given the chance to choose if I wanted to be in the circus because I had this city life.
Okay, yeah.
Circus was something that I eventually chose. And I went off to Cirque du Soleil when I was 22. A lot happened before that.
What did you do when you were 2? Yeah, like what were you doing in your parents' street show?
They would balance me, basically.
Yeah,
I smiled. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I probably held the hat and walked around with it because people give kids more money. As I got older, I started doing tight wire. That was my first apparatus that I fell in love with. And then, strangely, I moved on to tissue from also trapeze.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not really introducing myself. I'm starting to tell like my whole life.
No, that's great. That is, I mean,
if we're going to do elevator pitch, like my name is Ginger and I'm a creator in circus arts and a photographer on the side. I enjoy innovation and
long walks on the beach.
Long walks, I don't, kinda. I get bored walking. I like moving faster.
Oh yeah, okay, work. So when you said you chose circus, what did that look like in your family? Were you like, I choose this, or was it when you went off to school for it?
My parents actually founded the first circus school in Toronto.
Oh, work.
In 91.
Okay, cool.
We lived in that space. It was an old theater on the east side of Toronto. And there was a sort of converted into apartment area in that space. So although I chose it, I didn't really, it was getting away from it was.
Yeah, right.
It was life.
Yeah, wow.
So while other kids were, playing baseball and doing other things that kids do, I was in the circus school late at night. I was having slumber parties and sleeping on the trampoline and, getting my grandmother to pay me $1 for every time I walked across the wire.
That's professionalism right there.
Right? So what did it look like to choose circus? There was a point where I knew I needed to leave Toronto. Mm-hmm. I had moved out from my parents' circus school when I was quite young and I was kicking it on my own. And I part-time kind of worked in my mom's office. So I heard this message from someone saying, Marcia, thank you for connecting us with so-and-so. We're really looking forward to the tour. And I was like, what tour? And I ended up contacting them and going on this show that was a small American startup called Circus Chimera. And I went along with my coach who came from the circus school, my mom's school, with me. And it was there that I started really training swinging trapeze. Mm-hmm. Which was my absolute end-all goal. Having seen Alegria when I was 12, I made this conscious decision at 12 years old. I will be a soloist for Cirque du Soleil and I will do swinging trapeze. And that was my,
That was your true north.
My true north, my pin dot on a map. That's where
sure.
I was going to get. So 18, leaving Toronto, training swinging trapeze every morning on this touring show that, Jesus Christ, it was hard. I was in 6 acts. We did 15 shows a week.
Yeah.
We moved nonstop. Yeah. No days off.
Yeah.
I lived in a closet with another lady that didn't speak English. Like I paid.
Did you have to drive?
Dues. No, I didn't have to drive. There was a bus that I sat in.
Well, at least, not that.
No, but I mean,
at least that, but like I get it. Yeah,
I didn't even know how to drive at that point. I mean, I was a kid.
Okay.
And one day my mom came to visit me, 1998, and she gave me this bag of fabric and she said, everybody in Canada is doing this, you should try it. And I was like, okay. So we folded it in half and tied it to a carabiner. And at night after shows, I used to just hang it off one of the block and tackle and play. So a couple months went by of me playing on this fabric and still training swinging trapeze.
And to give everybody like context, like 1998, there's no Instagram, there's no like YouTube.
Exactly.
There's nothing. You're just up there like doing your thing, seeing what's cool for you.
So I just climb up. I did weird stuff. The way I tied my feet, who knows how I decided that was the way to do it.
Amazing. Yeah.
But, there was a bit of drama on the show, and the double trapeze act left, and they suddenly needed a new act. And the owner came to me and said, Ginger, can you do that thing with the fabric in the show tonight? And so, like most of those moments in my career, I said yes. And that's how I started performing tissue. So that year, I had a very bad accident from swinging trapeze, and I broke both my arms and wrists. I'll be specific. Both my wrists, and I ended up back in Toronto, where a friend of mine showed me a VHS. She brought out this VHS tape of Kidam. She's like, you got to see this. So there I was in Toronto, winter, casts on my arms, and that's when I first saw tissue performed. It was Isabelle Chasse.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, oh, fuck, that's what you're supposed to do.
That's what that looks like. I think that was all of our reaction to Isabelle Chasse doing that act.
But I mean, I had been performing tissue for months, and I had never seen anyone else do it. I had no idea what it was supposed to be. So people have told me in my career how, like, I have a unique way of doing things, and I think that's partially why. It's I made it up as I was going along in the very beginning.
What a gift, in a way.
Yeah, kind of. Just in that vacuum. So I came back from my accident and went back to trapeze briefly. That was disastrous. And then...
Why was it disastrous?
I was scared.
Yeah,
and I didn't have good coaching. And I tried... I was forcing myself back because my ego said that's what I had to do. I had to prove to the world that I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, that had been my pinpoint, right? So through several contract offers, it just kind of happened that tissue became my thing. Like I wasn't trying to be a great tissue artist. I just got these opportunities over and over again.
Yeah.
To do more and more and more of it. And really began to love it at a certain point.
That's so interesting. It sounds kind of like an arranged marriage almost, you know, in a way where they taught like families who are like in arranged, or partners who are in arranged marriage, they're like, we learned to love each other over time. You know, we were forced together or like put together through circumstance, and then we learned to love each other over time.
I like that.
How did you then develop, like you're saying, you played around a bunch on, you know, late night in this tent. And then you watched Isabelle Chasse. So going through these different contracts, did you then have Isabelle as like your reference for what tissue should look like? Or did you stick to your own style? Like what was it like to create and develop on the apparatus?
As I grew up, there was a very strong rule in my family. You can't touch anyone else's rigging. You can't touch anyone else's apparatus. And for me, that spilled over into content too. So it was very important to me that what she did in that video stayed hers.
Yes.
And I saw in years after, I mean, we all did. How many people did we see do sequences from that act? 1 billion, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. As well, remember, I had casts on my arms when I saw that, you know? And then I didn't want to do tissue. That wasn't my thing. I wanted to do trapeze. So it was never in my mind to like copy that or take it and, you know, make it yours, whatever. Good artist copy, great artist steal, right? It was never in my mind to do that because it wasn't my goal. I learned a lot in LA at my godfather's house, Bob Yerkes. He's a stuntman. After I came back from my accident, I moved to LA and lived at my godfather's house, who is a stuntman and who hosted the Circus of the Stars in his backyard. So his backyard is flying trapeze, high fall tower, everything. And back then, that's where...
He's kind of a legend.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of circus and stunt people in LA went to train at that time. Now, I don't think that's the case. But it was a hub. And I could just hang out. And that's where I met Christine Van Loo, Mark Wagner, several other people. Maybe we shouldn't even say any names, but...
I mean, you've been Christine Van Loo, friend of the podcast, you know, like these people are, should be.
Anyway, so living at Bobby's and meeting all these people and just training together. It was a really community-based, you know, trading tricks and having fun, and, you know, we're outside in the wind, so, you know, we're just...
Yes, I do know.
A little bit crazy. And at the time I was doing a lot of tight wire and trapeze as well. So I don't know, I was just hanging out.
Were you gigging? Like,
yeah,
how
I was
were you making
gigging.
money? Okay.
The thing is, the reason I moved to LA is because I read Memoirs of a Geisha and I became obsessed with going to Japan. So I figured, what's the closest I can get to Japan?
Yeah.
And where I might get a job in Japan? I'll go to LA because I have some friends there.
Legit.
And we'll see what happens. So I got there, started, you know, just hanging out in the backyard and training things, and within a couple months I got offered a job in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, that was cool. So my first job was a tight wire job in the south of Japan. That was interesting. And then from there I just started getting more work. So I ended up working in Hokkaido, and I was doing trapeze and tissue alternating shows.
And what was the gig? What was the circus? Or the,
the one in Kagoshima in the south was a children's festival, and the one in the north was a place called Mitsui Greenland that is like I'm sure it's not even open anymore, theme park, you know?
Okay,
yeah. And I took that job from the recommendation of a friend of mine who said, you need to go away and do a bunch of shows where nobody can see you and then come back to the market. You just need to go get a lot of experience.
Oh, what a good advice.
Yeah, it was good advice.
Because that is the perpetual issue of like, you need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And so this was a really good way to like not be in the Western market, if you will, but like hone your skills.
Yeah, which I did.
Yeah.
And I trained every night after shows. I don't know how or why. I mean, we did 3 shows a day for 104 days with no days off. It was hell. But from there, I went to another place called Little World Nagoya. And I took the end of Ruby Roat's contract. Ruby at the time was like this prolific swinging trapeze artist. And it was really her that saw me do swinging trapeze, and she kind of put her head to the side and she's like, you're really good at tissue.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and then the next job, they already had a swinging trapeze act, so they hired me for tissue, and it just kind of kept going. And honestly, I was relieved to not have to worry about the rigging. Mm-hmm. I was relieved to not have that stress. I was relieved to not have to train a longist in each contract.
Mm-hmm. Completely. Yeah. Even these days, I'm like, anybody who signs that, like, I remember thinking about disciplines and doing swinging trapeze and really like feeling that like, ooh, I could get really addicted. You know, like I could spend a lot of time doing this. But then talking to people about like, oh, my crane bar's in Lebanon and I have a gig in Germany and how the fuck do I get the, you know, and just being like, that is a logistical nightmare that I am not trying to live. Oh, hey there. I just wanted to interrupt this interview real quick to just say one real quick little thing about myself, which is that I am not only the host of the Artist Athlete podcast. No. She is a businesswoman, and I run a whole company dedicated to the education and inspiration of circus artists. That goes from people who are just doing it, weekend warriors as a hobbyist, recreationally, or if you're a professional, you've put in the hours and you need more resources, go to theartistathlete.com. There are a ton of recorded workshops, online manuals and ebooks, everything you could possibly need from me and from some guests on this show about everything from nutrition to training your shoulders to really specific aerial moves that you need to master. Again, theartistathlete.com. And just because you went there from listening to this podcast, use code PODCAST and get 15% off your entire purchase. That's right. Theartistathlete.com. Use code PODCAST at checkout for 15% off your entire purchase. And have a great day. Back to the episode. How would you define the Ginger style on tissue?
I don't know. I think it changed a lot over the years.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like at La Nuba, when I first started really flying and doing dynamic stuff, I was way more rock and roll.
Yeah.
More speed was my goal. Big flights, drops in flights. That was my favorite time, and I think that was the truest to me. Then, and that was the best because they just gave me time to develop.
Cool.
The Ginger style, I'm not sure. What does that mean?
I don't know. That's why I asked you. I mean, in my head, the Ginger style is like, and it's interesting, like, I mean, comparison is always like the thief of joy, they say, or whatever. But like the Isabelle Chasses of the world are the long, graceful, or like the Tanya Burkas, the like long, graceful limbs and the bendy. And then like, I think of like you as like the powerhouse, the dynamic, like throw the trick, throw the next trick. Big flight, like what you're talking about, you know, like that's what I think of. But
oh, cool.
I don't want to insert my perception of your work into this. I'd rather hear from you, like what yours is.
Well, you know, going back to the start of me doing tissue with the owner asking me, can you do that thing in the show tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's been a common thread in my career.
Can you do that thing in the show tomorrow?
Yeah, seriously. So I auditioned for Cirque after I got back from Japan, and that was my third time auditioning for Cirque. The first two times they turned me down, and the third time was on the stage of Mysterio, strangely enough. And I didn't care anymore. I just went there and I just showed who I really was. I wasn't trying to be anything other than just myself. But I had gotten very good at tissue at that point. Like I had been doing so many shows. And
3 shows a day, 105 days.
Yeah, it was even after that. So I joined a Japanese circus for a year and toured with this Japanese show. That was really fun. I've been everywhere in Japan. I love it. Okay. So I auditioned for Cirque, and I was like almost offered a contract at La Nuba at the audition. I was offered general formation, which was super exciting. So I came to Montreal and started work for 3 months in general formation with a partner. And right before our final presentation...
Can you define general formation?
Yeah, so general formation is something that Cirque used to do that was kind of like a mini creation. They brought in about 70 people, all different disciplines, with the intention of training those people to be replacements for contracts that would need to be filled at the end of the year. At that time, there were obviously less shows, and the contract schedule was pretty much all the shows replaced at the same time. So this was a really smart way for Cirque to train the new people coming in. But it was intense. There was acting, there was ballet, there was voice, there was movement. They really trained you to be an artist.
Wow.
It was a great experience. That said, right before our final presentation, they transferred my partner to a different discipline. So suddenly I had nothing to present. And talking with my coach, Dominique Loignon, and Alison Crawford, and my operator, Kevin Fuckenberg, I posed this question to Kevin: what would happen if you go up while I go down? And so we just started playing with drops and winch together.
Yes.
To make a duet of a machine and a person. And the goal was to create optical illusions with winch moves and tissue.
Yeah.
So that was the birth of the windmill in place. And these drops that go too far than they actually should.
Yeah. Like, you're saying such beautiful things. Oh my God. The birth of the windmill in place. Yeah, the drops that go too far. Yeah, the ones that you are starting at the bottom, right? And then as you're going down, they're pulling you up.
Oh, I'm starting at the top.
You're starting at the top.
But the tissue's all the way down.
This is what I mean. Yes.
Yeah. So that was the moment that was the birth of that move. And as well the drops in flight, because I realized, you can fly me and I can drop while you fly me.
Yeah.
Perfect. Running on the walls. I mean, I was doing really cool, crazy stuff in that presentation. And that's when they saw me to do the solo backup at La Nuba. So when I got to La Nuba, they got me a new winch, which was really exciting. And they gave me time to explore. And so that's where I really got to create my own way of doing it. Mm-hmm. That was wonderful and exciting, but not really marketable.
Oh, interesting. Why not?
Well, I was told, I was hoping to go to a new creation. I auditioned for Love. I tried really hard to move from La Nuba and into a solo role. But there was a stigma around not being skinny on tissue.
Uh-huh.
So I tried for Kidam, and they told me you don't have the right body type. So that was disappointing. And then for Love, I was too short. They ended up wanting straps, which is fine. But I guess I didn't fit. I was just a little bit too strange, I guess. Too short, too muscular, too dynamic. It didn't fit.
Yeah.
However, I did get booked on Delirium, doing my tissue act. And that was great. That was exciting. That was my first big role. It was really challenging on that show, though. It was not the right place for a tissue act. There were so many set pieces and dancers and trumpet player I have to fly around and somehow not get caught on. It was hard. Wonderful experience. But then from there, I, when you ask about my style, I think that it changed over the years because I had to conform to what I knew the industry wanted. So Zed was very different from anything that I had done before. Very quiet, very soft, very feminine. Part of that was dictated by the music that was written for me. And part of the reason there was no flying was because there was no donut on that point. And I just physically couldn't fly like I had before.
What, a donut?
Yeah, so a donut is what it is it fixes the cable in place. Zed had this, it was called the Matrix, and it had this huge, it was a loading area for artists and equipment.
Okay.
And it was also the flying trapeze net, this whole thing transformed into the, and it had maybe 18-foot opening in the bottom. So if I tried to fly around, my cable would slam around into that 18-foot opening. So that was, that dictated,
right.
Put some limits on what I could do acrobatically. But then Mysterio as well was, I eventually became what they had wanted me to be in the beginning.
Which is strange because how do you, what you're explaining they didn't want was more your body type.
Well, they also, when I say they, I mean they being society, not necessarily the company. Mm-hmm. But I also, I'll take some responsibility for that in the sense that I don't think I played my assets as well as I could have.
Interesting.
I think I was too sensitive to it. So there are other artists now that, they don't care. They're not going to try to change their body type or change their look because they don't fit with what's been done before. And I admire that a lot. I didn't have that mentality. I thought I had to conform.
It's hard to know though, because you did conform and then you did get work. So
yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of directions I guess you can take in that. And it's funny that you say that Zed act is feminine and soft, because I think that act's banging.
Yeah?
I love that act.
I love that act too. You know how that act was created?
No.
That's a good story.
Tell me.
So I was hired to do bungee and hammock and a backup act.
Okay.
There was no tissue in the show.
Oh, really?
No. it had an intermission. I don't know how well you know the show, but it had an intermission after
I literally know nothing about the
juggling.
show except for I'm obsessed with that fabric.
Thank you. Well, 3 days before soft opening, going back to my point, 3 days before soft opening, Guy comes to see one of the Lion's Dens, and he says to the creation team, the first half of the show is too masculine. You need a quiet female solo act between those two acts, and you need it by soft opening. So the creation team, I don't know exactly what happened in those meetings, but the next day I get pulled into an office and they say, can you do a tissue act in 3 days? And at that point, I had kind of retired from tissue. I had gotten a bit burned out by it. But of course, I said yes. And so that day we started rehearsals. We did 3 hours of winch programming in the morning and then 3 hours of running whatever we had at night. Simultaneously, they designed and made a costume. The music was written. Technical changed their entire flow to accommodate the act going in. Stage management, lighting. It was a extraordinary group effort and the most amazing moment in my career, honestly, because although I was the one on stage, there was so much behind supporting me.
Yeah.
And it was extraordinary to be part of that. I was so grateful.
What a testament to like the creative machine of Cirque too, you know, that they could just like be like 3 days, make it a solo act, let's go, you know, and to music, tech, everything, lighting.
Yeah, everything.
Artist.
And it literally started from that meeting to me going into the house to automation and talking to them about it and starting drawings of, okay, we're going to go from this height to this height. And that's when I started working with automation instead of a manually run winch. So the automation cues are pre-written. And I was really fortunate to work with a guy named Craig Reed, who was super forthcoming and really collaborative. And we built that act together in 3 days.
Do you prefer the automation to the manual? Because I could see that.
It depends.
Getting kind of scary.
I prefer manual for trying something.
Sure.
For research. I prefer automation for shows.
Interesting.
Because you are consistently given the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really nice. Although dynamic tissue is hard with automation at times, like when you have a new fabric and it's extra bouncy, the cues are a little off, or once it stretches out and now it's a little bit too long, or that can happen as well.
This is amazing, super dope. And I am very curious about something you said earlier where you were like, I have a lot of opinions about Ariel.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm starting to think about, because like you're doing Zed, like this is when like YouTube and Instagram and these things are kind of starting, right? And so how have you seen aerial tissue specifically? Because I think tissue is, for some reason, like this thing that's, it's different than the other disciplines in that it's really has become like I remember one of the reasons I chose to be a tissue artist was because I looked at the market for teaching and coaching and was like, because I had to support myself while I was in training, and I was like, I'm going to be able to do that so much more readily with tissue than any other discipline. What do you think it is about tissue specifically?
I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I honestly don't know what makes it so popular, other than the fact that it's very I feel like it transports people because of the softness of the movement of the fabric, that they think that somehow it's also going to be easy.
Yeah, they do think that, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I think that because it is typically done by a woman, it has a femininity to it that attracts people, again, making them think that it's simple somehow. When in reality, tissue is without a doubt one of, if not the most dangerous apparatus that an aerialist can choose. There's no safety line. I never worked over a mat. There's no net. There's nothing. You're just you up there.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of kids up high without I think without really comprehending the danger that they're accepting into their lives by doing something that is really so dangerous.
Yeah. The thing that always hits me when I see these things is like a lack of respect.
For the danger.
That's it.
Yeah. Because the ground will come up and hit you.
Sure will.
It will.
Yeah. Do you think the proliferation is a good thing?
Yes. I think the popularity of tissue has forced it to evolve. Sure. It's good that there are all of these studios where people are employed, and I'm a bit bored of it though.
Yeah.
See, I don't know.
Because
I guess
because I guess this is something that I'm wrestling with too, and like to have the opportunity to sit down with someone who like I feel is so iconic and has such a specific outlook on it. I'm just so curious, and I guess the question comes from, in my mind, like a lot of Mongolian contortionists who are seeing what contortion is now, or like what it is being marketed as in some ways, and being like, this art form is getting diluted in a way. There's not a respect for where it came from. And I wonder with aerial arts, and tissue is just the topic because, here we are, us. And I wonder if you feel that, like, what is tissue if it is a group of people doing it in 12-foot ceilings and, is it that, like what is...
Yeah. So that's something that I think is interesting with all of the studios that have opened over the last, let's say, 15 years. They don't have a lot of height, and the lack of height has forced the trajectory of the apparatus in a new way.
Yes.
And created a symbiosis sort of rope technique and straps technique onto tissue, which I love and appreciate, and I would love to see more of that. I saw Antoine Brassereau perform the other night, and I adore what he's doing with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite tissue artists. Right now. Good thing. I mean, the thing that I think is lacking.
But he has height. He has access.
He does. But
he can really.
But there's a majority of that number he could do at 15 feet.
It's true.
And I guess my point on that is the reason that the technique has evolved that way is because of low ceilings and because of the popularity of it. There's also a culture, I think, in rope more so than in tissue of sort of group trainings and and more of a community sense with rope. They're like the rock climbers of aerial.
So true.
And tissue artists tend to be more like the mercurial, like the cats,
So good.
So I'm happy to see the techniques blending together. But I think the thing that's really lacking in aerial arts in general is the teaching of the history of the actual people that brought it to where it is. And I think it's really important because this concept I mentioned earlier, good artists copy, great artists steal.
Yeah.
I think that we need to be really careful of that, because it's almost assuming that if I steal, I'll be a great artist. And that's not what it is. I think that we need to begin, like in other art forms, stating who we're inspired by. Because at the end of the day, and I learned this from my friend Marco Lorador, at the end of the day, by saying who inspired you, you bring everyone up.
Yes.
And that's really important now, because circus arts needs to be recognized as the true art form it is, and less the spectacle that it can create. And in order to do that, we need to start acting a little bit more like artists.
Holy shit. Yeah. Damn. Mic drop. And to act like artists, in your conception, it's respecting and knowing where we've come from.
In some ways, yeah. I think that's a start.
Yeah. What else?
I mean, I studied photography, and in photography, we're forced to take our picture and slide it across the table and say, what do you think? And we need to take that criticism. Yes. And that's another thing that circus and aerial needs, is we need to start critiquing positively, openly, not behind someone's back, not, sharing a video and saying something, shitty about it to your friend or whatever, but openly accepting criticism and openly giving criticism with the intention of making things better.
Yes, I think that's right. I went to school for acting, for theater, and it's very much that too. You get on stage, you do your scene or you do whatever, and the teacher stops you and is like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Exactly.
And it's not out of malice. It's not to like shoot you down, but it's to be like, no, there's a standard and there's a expectation, and you haven't met it yet, and let me show you how you haven't met it, so that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that we need to be trained how to critique others as well. It's not just like, let's all critique each other. How do we talk about acts in a way that is respectful to the person doing it and brings them up and takes them to a new place? And how do we do that as a community, not in a coach-student relationship, but in a community situation?
Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I do. I think that we need to invite, first of all, if you would like criticism on something, and you need to invite it. What do you think?
Right.
Like, what do you think of my work?
Yes.
Because that's what it is. It's you and your act are two different things.
Yes.
And in circus, we're so much like, I'm doing it. It's my act. It's
totally.
It's my blood. And in some cases, it is,
Literally,
It is. It's your skin. So that's the first fundamental change that needs to happen, is you need to remove yourself from your act. And then the second thing I would say is to ask for criticism. Yeah, but I, as well, like I said, giving props to the shoulders that you're standing on, because that's what circus is. It's just generations of people standing on each other's shoulders.
Right.
It's getting higher every generation.
Yeah.
Where this pyramid's getting bigger.
Yeah.
It's okay to say whose shoulders you're standing on, because you are standing on someone's.
Literally, sometimes.
Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what does your career look like now? What is the trajectory after Zed, performing?
After Zed, Mysterio.
Yeah.
I have 2 children.
Yeah.
10 and 5. My career at this point is somewhat fluid. I tend to gravitate towards innovation of any kind. Having come from a traditional circus background, I've seen a lot of different acts over my career, and I have a sort of a different opinion than other people, in the sense that I don't think that everything's been done. I think that circus is constantly evolving and constantly innovating. Well, I mean, we're screwed. If everything in circus has already been done, what are we doing?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure. So optimistic of you. Wow.
Well, I beg to differ. I would say that circus is just in constant evolution, and so my career path is hopefully to be involved in the evolution of it. I do acrobatic design, acrobatic performance design, and acrobatic choreography. I started developing a new apparatus a few years ago with the help of C-Lab, Cirque du Soleil's creation laboratory. And I'm close to finishing a duet on that apparatus, so that's really exciting. And I'm working on a couple shows at the moment as part of the creation team and designing acrobatics.
Yes.
When I look back, that's basically what I've always done.
Right. It sounds like it started with you as the designer and subject, and now it's just you're doing it broadly for others. Yeah. Cool.
I like it.
That's awesome.
And it's exciting. It's fun to see what you had in your mind come to life. It is a very long process, though. I listened to your podcast with Dominique Jandot, and I was happy to hear him say that it takes between 1 and 3 years to make a good act. And I think that's something that people need to really understand. You can't call a choreographer a week before a show and say, I needed to make an act. That's not an act. That's a display.
Unless it's Zed, and then it's 3 days and you're good.
Well, honestly, it took a long time for that act to be settled. And it wasn't in it wasn't in the best interest of the act to do it like that. Like the creation process that everybody else went through that year, I went through it while performing it. So constant changes, constant evolution. It wasn't, I think, until maybe 2 years into the contract that the act was truly like,
yeah, sure,
and not even done. I mean, it's never really done,
right.
But it was done enough. And Mysterio was similar. Mysterio had 9 days to create the act, but we were taking the Z act and just sort of moving some things around to make it work in that space. So
right.
It wasn't quite the same as creating a new act, although it did take a year at Mysterio for it to get settled too.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that you share that. I think that that's a really important thing for people to recognize, is that this art takes time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have one final question for
Please,
you,
yeah.
Which is, what advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career? Or what advice would you give to someone else at the beginning of their career if they wanted a career like yours?
Stick with it.
Yeah.
Stick with it. Yeah. Stick with your vision of it. And don't stop learning. I think that was a hard one for me at a certain point, because when you have to do 10 shows a week, 485 shows a year, and you still need to vacuum and go to the grocery store. You still need to facilitate your life.
Oh my God.
My Cirque du Soleil career in shows became a job, and I forgot the passion of being in a room with people just learning and playing and trading tricks.
Yeah.
So my advice to others is stick with it, be generous. The world will be generous with you, and keep learning. Diversify.
How often are you training now?
Very, very infrequently. There came a moment when it just wasn't interesting anymore, which is hard because you sort of mourn, the loss of that passion.
Yeah, it's like, if it was an arranged marriage before, then it's like, where did the love go? Like being in a relationship and being like, I want to love you, but like...
Yeah. Just, it at a certain point, it just hurts,
Well, that's real. Yeah, totally.
All the passion and the love for it that covered up all that pain and kind of goes away. And then you're like, oh, fuck, this just hurts. And I've done it so many times.
No.
The other thing.
Yeah.
I want to do different things. I love circus. I'll always love circus, but it's a big world.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Well, Ginger, I'm just going to go Ginger, like Cher or Madonna. Just Ginger. Thank you so much for this interview today. I so appreciate it. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, friends, fans, and foes. Go to patreon.com/theartistathlete and show some love, send some support, just like these fine Patreons that you're about to hear the voices of right now. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi, my name is Noah and I do hand balancing. Hi, my name is Woody and I do Leo walk. Thank you for listening to the Artist Athlete podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominique, a ground acrobat, trapeze artist, and coach, currently bringing circus to the extremely cold but very beautiful Northern Ontario, Canada. Circus has changed my life and I'm so grateful to everyone in this community. Find me on Instagram at DomUpsideDown or my website, domupsidedown.com.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast, straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and swing and rope by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.
Hey there, artists and athletes. This is Andy Smith, owner and artistic director at Saltaire Circus School in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And I want to thank you for contributing to the Artist Athlete podcast. If you ever find yourself down in Florida, come check us out. Whether you're an artist, athlete, or someone ordinary just looking to be extraordinary, we got a place for you.